Want to bring you back to some breaking news. Illinois Congresswoman Lauren Underwood giving an update on her visit to the ICE facility in Broadview. She's been the first congressperson let in. Let's listen in.
Who is essentially the staff director of our subcommittee. So it's one staff person and myself that toured this Broadview detention facility. What I saw, there were no detainees present. They said that they had a couple processing this weekend. The last time they had anyone overnight was, quote, a couple weeks ago. We met with the acting director of this facility, who will be departing at the end of this week, and beginning next week there will be a new director who is coming in from the Washington, D.C. area. Okay, that director is in charge of this facility and the downtown processing facility and a 6-state region. I don't know all 6, but it's Illinois, Wisconsin, Indiana, Kansas, Missouri, maybe one more, Kentucky. What else can I tell you? We saw all of the holding cells. They are segregated, male, female. Each of them has, the largest I would say has probably 45 chairs. They look like kind of plastic or poly covered, low, like a sofa chair almost, multicolored, almost like primary or preschool colors. They have a television, and the largest holding cell had 3 showers. The shower works. And then each holding cell had a toilet. The toilet was not in any way anything that any of us would be comfortable using, certainly not in an area that is open to others. Okay, there's nothing at all comfortable. It does not meet what I would consider to be the minimum criteria for a detention cell. And the staff people from ICE were clear with us that they are under no legal obligation to meet those criteria because this is not a detention facility. This is a processing facility. And so there is obviously ongoing litigation about the conditions in the Broadview facility that are, again, unacceptable, given that we know that people have been held here for days, multiple days on end. We did not see detention officers. They were all gone. The ICE leadership that we met with said that they were, quote, they were updating their security systems and installing new security cameras, and so all detainees and staff were not present, basically. So there were some security guards, you know, that like are at the entry to do the mags and scans, and then these leaders, which I believe is challenging. For the first congressional visit in years, this facility has not received, or let me rephrase, despite members of the Illinois delegation making repeated requests over the last several months to be able to visit this Broadview facility, they said that no member of Congress has been here for years. The last time they believe was Senator Durbin several years ago.
Congresswoman, based on what
Yes.
you saw today,
Yes.
based on what the officers told you, I know that you said there were no detainees present. Do you believe what you saw today, the working showers, I know the toilets you described as not comfortable. Do you have a reason to believe those showers were working when detainees were here? Is that something you asked the officers about? Do you get the sense this was staged for you, or were the detainees able to use those facilities?
They had signage in English and Spanish saying that detainees could use a shower at least every other day upon request. That same signage said that detainees could receive bottles of water for free with meals and upon request. They said that detainees were fed meals of Subway or food from Walmart, or if the local facility that detainee was transferred from, if that facility provided lunch, that's what they ate. They do not have a food vendor like on contract. There are no medical contract. There's no one providing medical care. They had one package of Huggies. They had some sanitary pads for menstruating women, and they had foot powder.
I'm trying to read.
Do you feel like there was a point even to
conducting this visit now that we know there haven't been detainees here for a couple of weeks? I mean, it's the fact that this is when they let you in. Like, what's the point?
What's the point? What's the point is that over the summer, Donald Trump and Republicans muscled through the big ugly bill, which includes north of $150 billion for ICE and related immigration enforcement agencies, and that money is being spent here. So, for example, the staff footprint in this facility and downtown, the downtown processing center, is slated to probably triple by January. Really important. They don't currently have enough desk space. This facility had been, prior to Inauguration Day, open, or maybe open's the wrong word, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Now they're 7 days a week. They're moving to 3 shifts. They are increasing immigration enforcement at that rapid rate. The American people need to see what's happening in our community and the conditions under which people are being kept, what's happening in the name of the United States of America, etc. Oversight is essential, particularly in this moment.
But you feel like there was still a point to going now when we know there weren't?
If I didn't go today, no one would be in there. If I didn't go today, no member of Congress would have been in to see this facility.
But it's not a coincidence, right? That now is when they finally let you.
So
Is that your
I insisted. Okay, I think the timeline, just to really be clear, we made our first request in September to come to this facility, which was denied. And then when the shutdown happened, we're repeatedly denied. And then the government was funded. The funding, I think, was signed into law on like a Thursday. We were back in Washington Monday through Friday of last week, right? So this is the first business day that I've been back home with them fully funded, and we insisted on coming. And they said no several times. And, yet they want more money, right? DHS is on a continuing resolution. What does that mean? That means that this department is temporarily funded through January 30th. And they want our help to pass a full year funding package to give ICE more money. And I was like, let me rephrase. I'm being very casual. And so I shared with them that, they need to start being more responsive. Where's our briefings? Can they start returning some phone calls as we're inquiring about the status of our constituents? We can't even get information about where people are. We need to be able to come in and see the facility. And so for that reason, I'm very encouraged. We have a lot of other facilities we want to see, including the HSI facility in Lombard, including the facility downtown. There are no detention centers in Illinois, ICE detention facilities. All the flights, many flights are going out from Gary, the deportation flights. And so, a lot of folks from our community are being taken throughout this 6-state region. I will also say we asked very specifically about U.S. citizens and where in the process are U.S. citizens being held, are U.S. citizens being, their paperwork being straightened out, and they insisted that ICE, which they are delineating from Border Patrol, has not arrested any U.S. citizens for immigration violations.
Congresswoman, I'd like to read between the lines here.
Yes.
The day you come for the visit, there are no detainees.
Correct.
There are no detention officers.
Correct.
What does that signal to you? That this is performative or that this is the new normal?
What this signals to me is that they understand that what has happened here over the last 60 days is completely unacceptable. And they understand that that goes against every expectation that the American people have for immigration enforcement within the United States.
But did you get a fair look at what actually life is like in there for these detainees? Did this feel productive?
It looks terrible. It is not a place where you want to spend time.
Congresswoman, they're
Yes.
calling this a processing center. They don't call
Yes.
it a detention center.
Yes.
That is contrary to everyone who's been in there that we have been able to speak
Yes.
to. They said they've spent days, several days in there. At what point, from a congressional standpoint, is there a push to refer to this as a detention facility if that's what people inside say that it's being used for?
Right. So they said that their internal policy says that people should be held for 6 hours max. That's a Broadview policy. Their ICE regulations say that people should be held for 12 hours max, and that policy, the 12 hours max policy, was waived in June of this year. Okay, so then that could be like when you can consider that processing versus detention line being blurred. However, just because the timeline was waived, they are not subject to any type of minimum standard for like beds. So for example, I saw 8 adult cots, like 8 adult bed pads that could be like a cot. If you go into a detention center, they have actual beds. Okay.
Imagine like there being more than 100 people there, you know, which is what we had a couple weeks ago. What do you think that would have been like based on what you saw?
Unsanitary, uncomfortable, loud, noisy, smelly, because there's 3 showers, period.
Which weren't working back then.
You know, there's probably 6 toilets accessible to the detainees for that number of people.
What's your communication been like for your constituents who have potentially been in here? Had any contact with family members or people who have been in there?
Our constituents are calling the office every day, seeking help, trying to locate loved ones, trying to get medication to loved ones, trying to get the documentation to prove, you know, whatever to help their case. And it has been unacceptable, the level of non-responsiveness that we have received from the department during Operation Midway Blitz in particular. And no one should be treated this way. Like this should never be happening in the United States, and certainly not in our community.
Was there any conversation by those inside in terms of improving the situation in case there is another wrap up in March, as has been, you know, mentioned?
Oh, that's what I'm saying. They are trying to triple the staff. They are pursuing contracts for temporary office space. So I'm assuming trailers, right? I mean, if you look at this area, and you can imagine where they could stand up some temporary office space. But that's an assumption. We were not that specific. They have plenty of money. Okay, let's just start there. When you talk about a sum of money like $150 billion, they have plenty of money to spend. What that means for an ordinary American is that typically this agency is funded every year. So the Congress would have to work and do our work on time for this agency to receive funding. If there was another shutdown and ICE didn't receive another dollar for whatever period of time, they would still have that $150 billion to be able to hire and bring in these temporary structures to continue to grow immigration enforcement across our community. That's what that means. They are trying to complete a contract for a private detention center in Kansas that our Illinois folks would be sent to. They said that there's limited space for female detainees, so they're all basically going to Kentucky right now. Right? That's what that money can do, because they have this unlimited resource, basically. He had a question.
Follow-up, and then we'll take a couple more questions, guys.
Quick follow-up. Do you plan to insist on a visit with the detainees present? And also, given what people who spent time in there have reported, do you believe this needs to be called a detention center and held at the standards of a detention center?
I believe that the standards need to be improved. And I understand that there's ongoing litigation that would then enhance those minimum standards, which we are monitoring very closely. I intend to be back to this facility, and I have made a request to visit all DHS facilities in Illinois, and I look forward to the administration granting that request. And obviously I have been to a number of like Border Patrol, CBP, those types of facilities along the border, and will continue to do that kind of oversight as well.
Did they make
Yes.
a commitment for ongoing monitoring, or is that still?
They are not the people that make that commitment. Yeah, these are local staff. And
Well, in arranging this with Secretary Nelms, obviously didn't make the commitment was just to let you in.
Correct. Yes.
What do you expect will be happening here in the spring? Border Patrol is gone, the National Guard is left. Illinois. What do you expect? Like, will this be booming with dozens of people who are processed?
Border Patrol is not gone. Mr. Bovino might not be here right now. But according to these folks today, Operation Midway Blitz is still a joint operation between Border Patrol and ICE, and they have not received any instruction around an end date. And so I would not make any kind of assumption or categorical statement like that. And obviously, if there were folks in processing last night, they are continuing to detain people, maybe not at the same rate, but maybe so. Maybe they just knew we were coming today and wanted to clean it up, and they'll be back right after the holiday. I don't know. But I would not make those assumptions that there's any kind of delay or reprieve.
Can you clarify the security camera thing? You said that there were
Yes.
detention officers and no detainees.
Right.
Because they're updating the camera.
They're upgrading their security system today.
And so where would these detainees be? Or they haven't held them in several weeks?
Well, no, they said that people were processing last night, and then today they started the system upgrades.
But where are the people that were processing last night?
Presumably they were, I don't know, but yeah, they're sent to detention out of state, or maybe they were transferred to downtown.
Did you know going into today that there was not going to be anybody here?
I suspected, and then I talked to Mr. Kelly from the Illinois State Police this morning, and because they helped coordinate getting in, and he told me that there were no detainees.
A lot of folks are curious, where is Midway Blitz at this moment in time? Based on the information you have from your constituents, your tour today, where are we in the peaks and valleys right now of these raids going on to collect people?
I believe that nothing has changed in terms of constitutional right violations. You know, the way that we've seen them being DHS and ICE and Border Patrol stomp all over the Fifth Amendment right to due process, to be more specific, that has not changed. Obviously, we know that there continues to be a high volume of people being arrested and detained. They being the ICE local leadership that we met with today, made a distinction between U.S. citizens being arrested for impeding ICE or people who are arrested for the protests that happened right here. They made a very specific statement around doxing of officers and ongoing investigations of that type, right? So clearly they are still actively engaged in the community. And there are still U.S. citizens being caught up with these immigration enforcement agencies. And, you know, I am not here to reassure anybody. Okay, I probably should have said that from the beginning. I'm not here to say that this is okay, because it clearly is not. This is unacceptable. The way that immigrants and U.S. citizens have been treated here is unacceptable. And, you know, it doesn't make us more safe.
Do you have any sense of what the cost of this operation has been to date, or is there any way to even know? This will be the last question. Sorry, go ahead.
I did not ask.
Your headline today is what?
My headline today is that after years, the people's representatives were able to tour the ICE detention facility or ICE processing center at Broadview, and we have some, you know, ongoing concerns.
But it left you feeling
resolute, determined, you know, left me feeling like there's a lot more work that needs to be done, that there's, you know, information that people need to know, and, you know, we're going to keep going.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
Okay.
So we have been listening to Representative Lauren Underwood talking about she is the first person in her position as far as a representative of Illinois that was able to tour that facility. As you heard, she had a lot to say, but to basically kind of concise what she had to say, she basically said it was terrible. It was not a place where you want to spend time. There were unsanitary conditions. It was uncomfortable, loud, noisy, smelly. Also saying there were a total of just 6 toilets, which is disturbing considering during Operation Midway Blitz, allegedly more than 3,000 people were arrested, although we have no idea how many people were actually held at that facility. We're going to have much more on this story coming up on the news this afternoon at 4 o'clock.